Didn't mean to embarrass you." He assured her she hadn't, which was true. He enjoyed watching her squirm. It amused him. Besides, she'd brought it on herself. Desperation was unflattering in a woman, especially one on the wrong side of middle age, trying too hard to look like she wasn't. He finally put her out of her misery, introducing himself as Robin Holt, a name stolen from the Times obituaries, a surveyor from Oxshott in Surrey. He was hanging on for a call from a potential client in Kew about a meeting, so he could sympathise with how she felt. Or perhaps he could buy her a drink, and they could wait together. He could see her weighing up her options. She'd been stood up. What had she to lose? He smiled sheepishly, already knowing the outcome. Tessa Hayes didn't. If she had, she would never have accepted his offer. She'd have run screaming out of the botanist on pretty Kew Green and away from the horror awaiting her. 3.8 Google miles away, a tube train grumbled beside platform 4 in Earl's Court Station. It had been stranded for 20 minutes, and even with the doors open it reeked of sweat and frustration. Finally, the guard explained over the intercom that someone had found themselves under a train at West Brompton. A few commuters let out an audible moan, not for the fate of the suicide, but for the delay to their homeward journeys. Gina Lewis suspected it must have been a man. Throwing yourself under a moving train seemed to her an unnecessarily macho thing to do, and left a lot to chance. What if death wasn't instant? You'd be left with multiple fractures, amputated limbs, brain damage. The pervert still hadn't answered her text, so she idled away some time by checking the stats on her iPhone. She found a site called Loss of All Hope and tapped it. It made for fascinating reading. She'd had no idea that in the United Kingdom, train incidents accounted for 3.5% of all suicides, or that there was a 90% mortality rate for jumping in front of a high-speed train and only 67% for an underground train, or that Wimbledon, her home station, was one of the UK's suicide hotspots. A sudden swell of movement by the carriage doors interrupted her. She looked up and saw them file in 2 by 2 and fill their district line arc. She counted 20 of them, all dressed in navy and grey. She wasn't good with ages, never having had or wanted kids of her own, but guessed the oldest girls couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. Corralling the flock were 3 harassed teachers, and in the middle of them were 2 young boys. Gina watched them from her seat, looking for any sign of embarrassment, but the boys seemed blissfully unaware of the sexual imbalance. She smiled ruefully to herself and wondered how long that innocence would last. "Are those your real eyes?" A little blonde girl had stepped in front of Gina, staring quizzically at her. Gina could smell her sweet orangeade breath as she leaned in for a closer look. "Or lenses?" Gina swiftly dropped her eyes back down to her iPhone in an effort to ignore her. "They're pretty. I've got amblyopia." She pulled down her lower lid to reveal her left iris, which was the palest of hazel and twisted down and slightly inward like a misplaced contact lens. It was curiously beautiful, and lent her face an unearthly quality, like an angel hiding a dark secret. "It's called lazy eye, but we're not allowed to say that," said a tiny Indian girl, with plaits down to her waist. "I don't mind," said the little blonde girl. "So," said Gina.